Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod. And this time we are still in Dubai, and I'm glad to say that we have a guest with us, John James.
Hello.
But before we begin, as always, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you're listening to us on a streaming platform. If you're on YouTube, hi YouTube, as always. Don't forget to subscribe, press the bell notification button to get updates on our weekly episodes that come out. So, for the benefit of our listeners, viewers, today's episode is about business and legal insights with John James. A little different to what we talk about in terms of digital marketing, but I think with the follow-on from the episodes that we're doing, everything we're updating on in terms of my progression in Dubai, moving over, I think this is like a good element to talk about. So John, first of all, give a wave to the camera and say hi.
Hi.
So tell us a bit about yourself, John.
Well, I'm a consultant solicitor, which basically means that rather than being employed by a private practice firm in the traditional sense, I'm actually self-employed, which means I kind of I operate on my own time, I suppose, rather than worrying about the bosses. But I work for a firm that is consultant-led, which effectively means that I and a number of other self-employed consultants all work together to provide legal services to whoever's needing them, really.
Right, fantastic. And I can shamelessly say that you're my legal representative for Bobble.
For better or worse.
For better or worse, probably for worse on your behalf, but better for me.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just get to a point where I'm just like, might have been pulled over.
Yeah, that was a good one. I remember that one. Yeah.
And it was like, I do business legal advice. And yeah, you probably know something.
That's the key. It's knowing somebody is usually the secret weapon in the armoury, I think.
So, why did you come to Dubai? You're in Dubai now. Give us a bit of background. How you end up here?
By chance, really. My wife was offered a job in early 2022. Really, we'd come on holiday, and we did quite a lot of travelling, and so we'd decided that we'd always used to go through Dubai and never actually stop. So we thought, well, let's have a look around and see what it's actually like. And so we had a week with a friend, and then we moved on to Oman. But during the time we were over here, we said, do you know what, I could do 6 months out here, and given the flexibility I've got with my role, that was potentially doable. And Sarah's, my wife's firm, have an office in Dubai, so she could work from the Dubai office for that week.
Yeah.
And when we came home, there was an opportunity for her to cover maternity leave.
Out here?
For somebody in Dubai, who was going on mat leave. So we chatted for the best part of 3 minutes and said, let's do it.
Let's do it.
And so we ended up out here on a short-term contract originally. So we were due to be here till December 2022, and actually that was extended till at least July, and then more recently that's just been made permanent.
And you're still giving legal practice support and business insights to businesses back in the UK. You're not really
exactly, yeah. So, and that's the joy of it, is that of the flexibility of the consultant, is that you can take it away and work remotely. Okay,
so you use the self-employed consultant model. It gives you flexibility, etc. But tell me a little bit about, for those people that have listened to some of our podcasts, either me doing it in Dubai or me talking about the truth about Dubai, etc. What's it like living and working in Dubai? What are they like, the personal benefits, just in general? Just list a couple if you can.
Well, it's hot, it's pleasant, the weather is fantastic, and that's one of the big perks, I would say, because the minute you open the curtains in the morning, the sun is shining, the skies are blue, and you are more inclined to get out and work.
So there is a caveat to that. Just before this podcast, for those that are watching on YouTube, we went for a little bit of a walk to find a cable for electric elements to support with it. And I tell you not, I was wearing a different top. So I am now in a t-shirt.
Although you brought the bloody rain with you from England, haven't you?
Yeah, I didn't bring no rain. Spitting.
Spitting. It is spitting, yeah.
So other than the weather, what are the other personal benefits?
Well, the time zones helped really nicely with my clients, because it means I can, if I'm up at a normal time, because my wife's doing Dubai hours, I can be up at 8 o'clock, 3 hours ahead of the UK, get everything done nice and quickly in the morning without any interruptions, and then from the afternoon I'm then available to the clients a lot more readily without being distracted by emails and whatnot. So that's been really good. And I can work wherever I like as well, which is great.
What about from like a professional perspective? So obviously, personally it helps, but what's it professionally like being in Dubai? We're in Business Bay. So those that are listening, subscribing, we're in Business Bay. If you go into that direction, there's Burj Khalifa and everything. It's absolutely fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, professionally, it's buzzing. Certainly from the legal profession, but I would say digital is the same, accounting, finance is massive, lots of corporate interest here. There's lots of flexible perks to working out here, and DIFC, which is the International Financial Centre, is over the road from where we're staying, where my wife works at the moment. You can go in there and you can just see business operating, from all over the world. They're all in there. There's meetings going on left, right, and centre. It's just a hub of activity at the moment, and it's a great place to meet people.
I talked about this in my podcast about True About Dubai. I just came in and all you could see is just business taking place. Everywhere you looked. People having fun, enjoying their lifestyles.
Yeah, it's dynamic.
It's dynamic.
Yeah.
But where you want to go for business, it's business. Where you want to go for have fun, it's have fun.
That's true.
There's no kind of like, there are places like in between, but everyone says go to Abu Dhabi for that if you just want work and relax, but it's different. So we're going to get back on topic a little. That's a good insight for us for About Dubai. So thanks for that, John. So we're going to talk about business legal insights, particularly looking at, access to law for SMEs, dispelling any myths and fears using a lawyer. So it worked quite well with us because I was as an SME at that time. So explain that access to law for SMEs, because if something comes up and you're a small business, the first thing you think is the cost, the legal cost of doing it. And there have been occasions and examples where I've had a client that's failed to pay invoices, and if it goes into a dispute, it can cost £20,000-30,000 just to get £4,000 or £5,000 back. So what's the point of spending the £30,000-40,000 if you're not going to get your legal fees back to get £2-3 grand back in terms of unpaid invoices? As one example for small SMEs, what's the benefit? What are the myths?
Well, I mean, I would say I'd like to say it was a myth, but it can be expensive, so it probably isn't really a myth that it can get expensive instructing a lawyer at any point of your business. But one thing I will say, just for context, I'm a commercial solicitor rather than although I did used to do litigation, so I did a lot of fighting over contracts and debts and whatnot, personal injury claims as well. But for a small business, their biggest concern is being hit with a large claim or not being paid in that first year and being worried that they've got the documents in place to really hit that person as hard as possible or defend something as comfortably as possible. And that can get expensive. And so I'm a big purveyor of the prevention is cheaper than the cure model. And for SMEs, that's the key in my opinion. It's much better to invest a little bit at the beginning or less than you would be if you were falling out with somebody at the beginning to get some contracts in place, get some documents in place so that your business, so the website looks professional, so that you're presenting professionally, not only to clients or disgruntled clients or customers, but also new suppliers or competitors who will be keeping an eagle eye on new entrants into the market and what value they can offer. And so as lawyers, we look to not take all that first year money off people or investment capital at the beginning, but to actually, and certainly I try to grow alongside that SME who might, instead of paying a big upfront fee or be worried about paying large costs later down the line, is I'll just sit monthly alongside your accountant or the insurance that you have to pay on business and just be there as a backup. And that for me is the best value that lawyers can offer. And it can be scary to SMEs because they'll think, well, I can probably just get that online. I can probably just get a set of documents online that will help me for now, or I know all my clients, so I don't need that because we're friends and we'll do good business together. But I can tell you from a litigator's perspective, I had a cabinet full of clients who had that opinion.
So explain from an SME, so any SME that's listening or watching this, what are the key documents that they should have in place that isn't going to be too costly, but they want to probably invest in a little at the start, as you just said, that would cover them?
For certain, a set of terms and conditions, whatever type of work that SME does, so that's setting out
the contract and terms.
So a contract for the services that you're going to deliver to your client, your own clients. So in your case, the digital clients who are after marketing campaigns or whatever it might be, you need to make sure that the document you provide them with not only sets out exactly what you're going to do for them, and how much you're going to charge for them, but also what happens if things go wrong. And I've started using a line saying that I'm the man who writes all the documents that nobody reads, and you only ever read them when they go wrong, when things go wrong, because you need to then check the print. And if you haven't got that, it makes the prospect of litigation even more scary because you can't rely on a line in a document that says you can't do that or I can do that.
But how would someone know what line they need?
Well, there's some very simple, I say simple, there are some basic terms that every document should cover, even if you don't instruct a lawyer. Things like what we're going to do for you, how much it's going to cost, how regularly you need to pay me, and what I can do if you stop paying me, or if I don't deliver the service properly. So that's termination clauses. They're very important. In your case, in your type of business, in marketing especially, who owns the content that you're providing for them? Is that the client's? Is it yours? And how is that set out in a contract if there's a specific circumstance that might make it a slightly different to the norm? And that just makes it easier, because in the worst case scenario, if somebody tries to sue you, or you try to sue somebody else, you've got a document that you can rely on and look at. And if you haven't got that, and lots of companies haven't, it makes it interpretable either way. So you've got somebody saying one thing, somebody saying another, and nothing in the middle telling you what actually it should be.
It's just give an example from our perspective. So our T's and C's, right now we do minimum 6 months commitment, the 6-day notice period for all clients. And the reason we do that is because if we're going to invest time building out a Performance Max campaign, a Google campaign, a Facebook campaign, then actually, that's our knowledge, our setup, our processes that have gone into that. And essentially, once it's set up, we don't want a client just to say, oh, well, no, thank you, it's been a month, but we don't want to work with you after the next month. And essentially, we will take that, because they've got all the hard work, the strategy done, everything built out, just to leave it on autopilot and go in and make a couple of changes when needed. We have to protect that, because that's our intellectual property. That is our processes and elements come in, because then someone else could take that. So within that first 6 month period, if they do give notice in that first 6 month period, we can actually at the end pause and delete our campaigns, because anything after that we won't, because you're committed to a long-term element, because that is the time and effort and resource required to put into that. And if you decide that, oh no, you want to take it back in-house, well, that's fine, but then build it yourself in-house.
Well, and design and build, there's big risk. There is big risk for the person designing and building. You're dead right.
With us, because we charge monthly, a lot of our work is actually done up front, but we separate it. So if they leave in, like I said, if they leave in that 6 month period, then we can delete element. If they leave after that 6 month period, then it's fine. There's no issue, because we spread that initial upfront element across over that 6 month period, and they've committed at least to that 6 month
And you've told them. That's the key.
And you've told them that. So, and it's in the T's and C's. So I remember when we did it, we had our engagement letter updated, we had our terms and conditions done, we had all our other contracts reviewed in terms of our information elements on our website, which is key. I mean, for us as a business, we had our employment contracts looked at and elements like that. So just general contracts that we had looked and improved. And now since then, we've then obviously had an HR company, which then had their own employee contracts format, so we took that away. And it's always a learning curve. How many times have we updated our T's and C's?
Yeah, we've spoken annually at least, haven't we?
So
to make sure that
would you recommend doing that?
And this is the joy. The thing about it, a set of T's and C's, is that people think, oh God, it's a document I'll stick in a bank and in the document bank and no one reads. It's actually a fluid document. It's something that you should present your clients with, certainly at the beginning, if not every time you vary a term of the contract or something that you're going to be doing, just to remind them that there are documents that they need to be aware of, so that you're upfront with them. It gives that assurance, I think. And as a lawyer, I have regulatory obligations to make sure that I'm doing that. And it's just good practice to make sure that that there's no surprises, no nasty surprises. And if you've got that suite of documents, we call it, at the beginning of the process, as a new business, as a startup, then you're in a better position to communicate the work that you're going to do for them and prevent any problems going forward.
But also, with us, and I'm using us as a bit of a case study here, is that you come up across something and you realise it's not in the T's and C's, or it's not very clear in the T's and C's, or you want to update how you operate. So we used to do 30-day notice periods, now we do 60-day notice periods. Before, we used to let people invoice how they wanted, and now it's direct debit. And we have strict 7-day payment terms elements, and then elements. So as you grow as a business and you go from basically a micro business to an SME, your operations change. Thus, your T's and C's have to change to accommodate having that element and scalability. So that's something you need to look. So what other myths and fears would you say that someone has when they're approaching, legal and business?
Well, I mean, the cost is the big one, or the worry that they're going to be sued, or that they're going to end up in trouble if they don't cooperate or comply with every single rule and regulation that there is. We find that a lot of people panicking about, well, what if, I deal with regulated companies who require FCA approval, for instance, or they've got a lot of data that they use, and so data privacy becomes a big concern for them, and their clients are often worried about making sure they're doing the right thing, and by just getting a lawyer in at the beginning, it just enables you to go, yes, actually you do need that, or no, actually see how it goes for a while before you incur any cost or risk doing that bit, or actually it'll probably be okay for now. And so there's this fear that you've got to do everything right, and so some firms will go, no, I don't need anything, and on the other end, some clients will be kind of over diligent and think that they need more, and sometimes it's just getting that balance right, and that's where again the lawyer can get involved early doors and make sure that they're doing it right.
Do you have any kind of examples, incidents or cases, you don't have to obviously mention the clients' names, but where you can give a bit of just a bit of context around obviously what we've just been talking about?
I've got one interesting example where a client came to us. Actually, it was a litigation case where there'd been an allegation that an individual person who was contracting with them had been defamed by the company, so on certain grounds, or discriminated against, in fact, and the allegations had been made, and so they were looking to terminate the contract. And my client was kind of sat in the middle between an end client who they were providing services to, and appointing this individual to go and deliver those services. So it was a bit of a triangular circumstance. But the terms of the agreement that my client had with their end client was that they wouldn't get paid for 90 days, whereas they were paying this associate, this person, within 14 days. And so they were actually out of pocket when they received a timesheet and paid them, before they received the money from the end client. And in the meantime, this problem had arisen. And so my client had paid out five figures of thousands of pounds. And this client was now saying, well, I'm not going to pay you because we've now got a problem with this person delivering the work. And so my role in that was to say, okay, well, let's resolve this issue first, which we did, thankfully, but it was delicate. And then saying to this client, right, this contract situation is not working for you. I mean, you're actually going to lose money if you do it this way. Why don't we make sure that your T's and C's are working properly, so that you're not paying out until you've been paid. Simple point. It's your cash flow, it's your invoicing, it avoids problems down the line. And it's all about that prevention being cheaper than the cure, going back to that first point. So that was a really good example. We've had certain clients come in who've set themselves up, done really well in that first year of business and operating, and all of a sudden a big client has come along and said, right, we need you to deliver this, that and the other. It's a big contract, so the SME doesn't want to say no to it, but they're feeling that they're getting pulled around a little bit by the big client that's coming in and saying, right, well, I'm paying you all this money, so how do I know you're going to deliver it and whatnot? And often you then end up in a bit of a battle with the terms and conditions, because the big client will come in and say, right, well, I'm not going to agree to that. I don't want to do on your terms. These are the terms that we want. And that's the other part where it's useful for a lawyer to get involved.
I always find you've got to stand your ground.
You do have to stand your
ground.
ground.
Especially as a small business. I came up to clients like, no, that doesn't work for us. We want 30 days. After the 30 days of work you do. And I'm like, well, then this contract can't go forward. And they're like, what? And I was like, no, we're going to be stringent on this. I mean, if you want 30-day terms, we bill you up front then to give you 30 days, because we bill at the end of the month, which is why terms are 7 days and stringent. Because 7 days is enough. 30 days, we've done the work. We've already done the work for 30 days. So you're actually owed at the end, from the last day of that working month of that day to us. So we're like, no, it's owed now, because we've done the work for 30 days. We're not going to wait another 30 days to get paid, because then if there's a late payment after that, we would have done 2 months worth of work and started the 3rd month worth of work before even getting paid. Then it just doesn't work. So having that where it's, end of the month within 7 days for small businesses, really.
And as an SME, cash flow is king. It's one. As a self-employed, I know that as well now. Is that it's all very well getting the bill out, but if you're not getting paid for 90 days or 60 or 30, then it can cause that cash flow problem. And if you've got other bills to pay, things start to fall by the wayside. So, that's one of the little tips, I suppose, that I'd try and force through, is that if you're an SME, don't be scared by big clients coming in and wanting to work with you. But equally, don't just simply give way to whatever demands that those clients have, because they might become a problem for you. And actually, they'll respect if you've got a good set of documents and T's and C's that you're willing to fight for before they engage.
Yeah, and those TCs can be very, very useful for a business. I mean, the terms and conditions, the engagement letters are key. I mean, that's great from a B2B perspective, but obviously from an e-commerce perspective, then it's completely different. A lot of that has to be on your website, it has to be very visible, and it's got to be up to date, and you've got to say it's up to date. If you do update your terms, you've got to say the minute you've updated it, you send it over to the client to say, oh, by the way, these were updated as of this date. I know our T's and C's says we can update them without any prior notice onto specific elements, unless it directly impacts something directly, then obviously they can element it, but we just tell them, right, these elements have been updated in line with certain regulations or updates that come from, from the government, or updates in general, GDPR, privacy policy.
Well, privacy has been fun since Brexit, so on a lot of post-Brexit.
And that one's one that continuously keeps changing and updated in T's and C's and elements, just to make sure in elements. But having those T's and C's allowed us to have a baseline in terms of what we offer, to set those T's and C's up here in the UAE. In terms of having us established and having a groundwork and engagement format to kind of work from. So open up the second office. Doesn't that saying it's easier, but the process is easier because I need this, I need these legal elements in place and engagement layer elements. I need to update my website for the UAE elements from that perspective as well, to make sure I cover everything, not just UK and UAE, etc. So there's a lot of elements there that then actually take...
there are, and you can actually, especially if you're a company that is looking early doors to be operating abroad as well, in having international clients or different offices or whatever it might be, it's important that either you've got a set of T's and C's per jurisdictions, per area that you're going to be doing the work, because there might be different rules on data or health and safety or whatever it might be, or you can then have a set of general T's and C's which are a bit more generic, they're often a bit shorter, which just govern sort of international trade terms that everybody's happy to abide by without tying them into something specific to a particular region or country.
Right. Well, that's been very, very interesting. I'd say a key change to the kind of topics we have. So kind of for me as a podcast host, a bit of a breath of fresh air, as they would say, just to kind of talk about something different, which still impacts businesses and elements, because if you consider it even from a marketing perspective, you've got to make sure your marketing materials covered from a legal perspective, everything you say and elements like that. So legal isn't just to business, there is an element to marketing from it. But it's like build your foundation strong, and a bit of selfless promotion for John. I know I won't let him do it, but I'll do it. Is that actually the method that helped me when we were a small agency, still are a relatively small agency, but back then was that it was split over 12 months. It was a 12-month commitment, but I got all the key documents within that first month to 2 months, revised and done, branded out there, so I could start operating with assurances, but not having that upfront significant cost and brain. And it's worked so well for us that how long have we been partnering together now?
Quite a while, it's got to be 4 years at least, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be 4 years at least. So, and it works as well. So
it does, and that for me is the key. Is trying to get across the point that SMEs shouldn't be scared of speaking, at least speaking to a lawyer. Usually they'll give you a free initial consultation anyway, but actually. Certainly with consultants or self-employed consultants or the legal studio kind of model, I suppose, you can often find a lot of flexibility in how that then gets charged to you, and that's the key for these startup businesses who are trying desperately to get through that first year and are terrified of these large bills or troubles that might arise in that first year.
It's just, and it's the level of like assurance and protection, because I know then I can just message you or email you saying, what are your thoughts on this? And you'll be like, it's fine, or no problem, etc. So thanks for joining us, John.
Nice to see
Very insightful. Can't wait to release this episode. For those watching and listening, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Thank you for joining us. We will be doing more podcasts in Dubai in the upcoming future as I keep travelling back and forth from Dubai and representing the Bobble digital brand. So we'll catch you forward. If you have any questions or feedback, don't forget to tag us at Bobble Digital across social media, or use the hashtags Mr. Bobble or hashtag AskBobble or hashtag BobblePod, and we'll get back to you on that. See you next time.